Next on AM 1480 WLEA, the Newsmaker Show. Here's Ryan O'Neill.
And as promised, it's a 1-hour Newsmaker show today. In the first half hour, it'll be the school superintendents from Arkport and Canaseraga. And in the second half hour, our regular Friday guest, Dr. Robert Heineman. First, welcoming Jesse Harper and Chad Groff, the school superintendents from Arkport and Canaseraga. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you for having us.
You're welcome.
Well, the vote is coming up on the possible school merger. That'll be Tuesday. What are the voting hours?
So in both communities, the hours will be 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. The Canaseraga residents will be voting in our typical school foyer area, and everyone will be voting by paper ballot.
And for Arkport, it's in our typical location of the small gym from 11 to 8 p.m. And also a reminder, just like normal budget votes or board votes, we do have absentee ballots available. And those are available in the district office. And
how long can people get the absentee ballots, Jesse Harper?
Up until the day of the vote, but they need to be in to the district clerk by 5 p.m. on Tuesday the 13th.
Okay, so you have some... where can people pick up the absentee ballots again?
That's in the district office for Arkport.
And for Canaseraga.
Okay. Well, this has been going on for a while, the whole school merger process. How many votes has there been in each community, and how long has it been going on? And I know that Alfred Alman was originally involved. How long has the voting process been going on?
It did this current merger vote, because this has been happening in both communities since 1960. So we have multiple votes since the 60s. This current merger vote did come out of the three-way study that occurred with Alfred Alman 4 or 5 years ago now. So after that, both communities were polled in a budget vote whether or not they would like to see the two-way study occur. And that was a yes in both districts. So that started about 2 years ago with this two-way merger study. And at this point, we've had 2 votes in both districts. 1 vote by the board in August, and we had the straw vote in October. And so now we're headed into the 3rd vote on Tuesday.
Your thoughts on the merger? I guess I'd say pros and cons, but your thoughts on the reasons for the merger starting out. And let's start out with Canaseraga Superintendent Chad Groff.
One of the primary goals that we've tried to look at is increased opportunities for our students. Right now, many school districts across the state are finding it very difficult to, number one, find classroom teachers. There are specific subject areas and certification areas where it's very difficult. For a small school district, sometimes it's extremely difficult when we have a particular teacher opening to find applicants who are even able to apply. There are times where we have applicants apply who aren't quite certified, and we just quite literally can't really put them in a classroom. And that's not to even discuss hard to fill areas like math and science, those kind of things. So I think one of the things that Mr. Harper and I have tried to do together as 2 small schools is to create opportunities for kids. A good example of that is our combined athletics program. We were doing things a little bit piecemeal together, bringing particular teams together and increasing opportunities where if those opportunities were not created, kids just wouldn't be able to play particular sports.
And how has that gone so far, the combining the school teams?
It's gone fantastic. It's gone really well. The perfect example of that is the fact that during the winter season that just started, we have 14 teams for the combined program. That's more than each district had separately. So we really are increasing the opportunities for those students with the program.
Talking this morning in a special 1-hour Newsmaker in this half hour, we have the school superintendents Jesse Harper from Arkport and Chad Groff from Canasarega. Is it worked out yet which schools students would stay in their building and who would be bused? Would there be any busing? How does that look at this point? I know originally when they were talking about the three-way merger years ago, there was the possibility of online classes was discussed. Is that still a possibility? Starting out with the busing issue.
So one of the things that we've projected, I guess I'll drop back to location of the projected location of students. Our plan right now would be, and the information in the study is that PK6 would remain in each building, and the 7th and 8th grade students would come to the Canasarega building, and then the 9 through 12 students would be housed in the Arkport building. Obviously, with that would come some additional shuttle busing, and kind of the concept would be is the Canasarega kids would come into the building, the 9 through 12 kids would grab a bus, be shuttled to the Arkport building, and the same thing would be happening. Arkport kids coming into the building, and the 7th and 8th grade students would be hopping a bus to come to Canasarega.
And why? And how did you come up with the idea for, busing this group of students and leaving this group of students here? What came out of the discussions, and how did you arrive at the conclusion for that one?
So looking at the best use of the facilities and how to, again, increase the opportunities for our students and offer them the most opportunities, having the 7th, 8th, we can't fit the entire population of 7 through 12 of both buildings in Arkport. So then we're looking at, okay, so if that is true, where can we house the students, and what programs can we offer? And that's where the recommendation of housing 7th and 8th grade in Canasarega came from. And that allows both districts to have a true middle school model for the first time. And that's something that we've been discussing and trying to figure out how to do for many years in Arkport. So then the busing comes from that. How do you get 7th and 8th grade students from Arkport over to Canasarega, and how do you get 9th through 12th grades from Canasarega over to Arkport? And so it would be a shuttle system. So students would go into their home district and get on a bus that would take those grade levels to their respective schools.
And online classes, is that still a possibility, or is that not in the discussions anymore?
I think once we get an idea of where our teachers are going to fall in the context of teaching, I guess primarily high school age level students, that's certainly an option. We would definitely like to see our in-district teachers, I guess, teach those courses. We have talked about different options of, so if we have particular kids that want to take an 8th grader that wants to take a 9th grade course, is that an option to do some type of online link between the two buildings? So yeah, those technology pieces are certainly up for consideration.
And in Arkport, we have switched to more online classes, but that hasn't necessarily been our choice. Because of declining student enrollment and not having enough students to fill a class or the teachers to teach it, we've had to go to more online classes. And we believe in Arkport that one of our goals is that most of our students do experience that before graduation, because they're going to have to do it in college, or they're going to have to take an online trade class. But part of the discussion is we would like to have our teachers teach more of those classes, but we need the student population, we need the teachers to do it. So we've been forced into more college classes just by our circumstances.
Will the merger make things more high-tech? I know that schools, every year they become more high-tech in terms of, a lot of schools, you can get your class notes online, and there's all kinds of ways for students to prep and study, just going online. They can grab their phone or do it on a computer. But Are there any plans for that in terms of the merger?
I don't think any of that really is going to come out of the merger. I know I can speak for Canasarega teachers right now. Our teachers are trying to implement some of that online learning, just in the context of being able to, as you said, Brian, grab their notes, take notes, house notes in a Google document. Be able to store those. They can access them at home. We have one particular teacher that teaches 8th grade English and 10th grade English who really has jumped on board with that and has really implemented that Google Classroom concept. We have a couple other teachers that are implementing it as well. So I don't necessarily think the merger per se would initiate that. I think probably both buildings and both districts have initiated some of those technology pieces. But I guess I would say also bringing our teachers together, that group think piece, putting people together and, hey, how can we do this? How can we do that? What are the positives that you're doing now? Would certainly probably generate some conversation.
Talking with Arkport School Superintendent Jesse Harper and Canasarega Central School Superintendent Chad Groff. Going to take a quick break. We'll be back. Stay with us.
From the Fox Sports Studios in Los Angeles, here's Eddie Garcia.
In the NFL on Thursday Night Football, the Steelers roll over the Panthers 52-21. The Steelers are led by quarterback Ben Roethlisberger, who completed 22 of 25 passing for 328 yards and 5 touchdowns to 5 different receivers. Pittsburgh improves to 6-2-1 with their 5th win in a row. Carolina falls to 6-3. More news from the Steelers, where President Art Rooney II says he expects running back Le'Veon Bell to report to the team next week. The star running back has sat out the first 10 weeks of the season by refusing to sign his franchise tender. He must report by Tuesday if he wants to play this season. In NBA games of note, the Bucks go on the road and knock off the Warriors 134-111. Eric Bledsoe had 26 points. Giannis Antetokounmpo 24 points for Milwaukee, who improves to 9-2 on the season. For Golden State star Steph Curry, left the game with a left adductor strain. He'll have an MRI on Monday. Celtics needed overtime to beat the Suns 116-109, and the Thunder knock off the Raptors 98-80.
From the Fox Business Network, Walt Disney Company is reporting record earnings for the past year, helped by Black Panther and other movies. Disney also says it expects its deal to buy entertainment assets from 21st Century Fox to be completed earlier than the middle of next year, which was the original estimate for it to close. 21st Century Fox is parent company of Fox News. The Justice Department is suing UBS over mortgage bonds issued before the recession. The government claims UBS misled investors about the quality of billions of dollars worth of those bonds. The Federal Reserve did not raise interest rates as it wrapped up its meeting yesterday. However, the Fed indicated it will continue to gradually raise rates. The Dow was up 10 yesterday, the Nasdaq dropped 39 points, and the S&P was down 7. With the Fox Business Report, I'm Jenny Cosola.
Renowned medical correspondent and endurance race champion, Bob Arnott, MD.
People ask me, how do you keep competing at the age of 70? Healthy living is important, but so is pain relief. If you have pain, you can't train. So I'm thrilled I discovered Salonpas Lidocaine Plus. This unique topical pain reliever contains 2 safe and effective anesthetics. Nothing has worked better for me.
Salonpas Lidocaine Plus, cream or roll-on.
The Ryan Agencies, your local, independent insurance agencies. The Ryan Agency employs 15 of your friends and neighbors. They live, shop, and support our community. When you buy insurance from the Ryan Agency, you support local families. Contact the Ryan Agencies today, your local source for all things insurance.
Insurance protection you can rely on. The Ryan Agency.
Back on our special 1-hour Newsmaker, Dr. Robert Heineman will be in at 8:30. Right now we're talking about the upcoming merger vote next Tuesday. We're talking with Arkport Central School Superintendent Jesse Harper and Canasarega Central Superintendent Chad Groff. I'm wondering, how does BOCES fit into the merger equation?
Well, both districts use similar BOCES services. We both work with the GST BOCES for services. We both work with Erie 1 for other services. So there will absolutely have to be a discussion of there are some overlapping services. So in a combined district, what are those new levels that we want? But it's not a really difficult question because we do use the same services. Now there is a little bit of overlap with other BOCES. I know Canasarega uses Genesee Valley for a few services. We use some different BOCES for communication. So we'll have to figure those out as well, but that's not impossible.
And taxes. If there's a merger, how would taxes go? How would taxes be affected in the two different towns?
Right now, with the from the study, it is projected that the new tax rate using part of the incentive aid would drop down below $18 per thousand in both districts. Now that is a larger drop in Arkport than it is in Canasarega, but that does represent a decrease for both districts. And the goal of the combined district would be to keep that tax rate low for as long as possible, but it resets the tax rate for both districts. So after the incentive aid starts to tail off after 5 years, but the incentive aid lasts for 15 years, it never automatically jumps up to a old level. So with the incentive aid, we reset the tax rate at a lower rate, and then we work to keep that rate as low as possible for as long as possible.
Did you want to say something, Chad? Talking with Jesse Harper from Arkport Central and Chad Groff from Canasarega Central. The next merger vote coming up Tuesday. The timeline. If it's a yes vote on Tuesday, what happens then?
So the timeline would be in any merger study when the binding vote occurs, the state requires that newly formed district to be or come together the next July 1st. So as of November 13th, if the binding vote is successful and there's a majority in both communities, the school districts would come together as of July 1st of 2019.
As far as the teachers go, and teachers, administrators, all school employees, what would the plans be there?
So kind of going back a little bit, Brian, one of the kind of differences, I guess, with what we're looking at as far as a type of merger is we're doing an annexation. Typically an annexation, the annexing district pretty much decides who's going to continue to work. That was one of the issues that within my community of Canasarega was a concern for, what's going to happen to our teachers and how are we going to make this work. And the Arkport board and the Canasarega board had numerous conversations about those particular topics, and one of the things that came out of it was an assurance of 5 years for everyone's job. So once the districts would come together, staff would be guaranteed, assured that they would have a job for 5 years. And if there were time frames where somebody moves away, somebody retires, the new district would look at, does that person's job need to be replaced? How might that position be better utilized? And so some pieces through attrition may kind of work themselves out, but within the third year of the potential merger, a social studies teacher is not going to lose his or her job.
And that assurance extends to all faculty and staff in the districts, teachers, aides, cafeteria, bus drivers. So that is a 5-year assurance for everyone in both districts. And one thing that became clear during the study was that it's not only assurance, but the tenure and seniority of both districts is held intact. So the question has come up about after 5 years when the assurance is over, is that automatically going to mean that Canasarega's teachers would be the first ones to lose their job? And that's no, because the seniorities of both districts blend together. So that we really want to make sure that's understood, that the seniority and tenure of all employees is there after the merger.
We talked about the plans for busing earlier. How about teachers driving? Would any teachers have to drive from one district to another?
Some of that's going to be dependent upon, most of our elementary staff pretty much are going to stay in each building, so that's not an issue. Potentially with 7th and 8th grade, we've got to take a look at what does that look like. So for English, we've kind of projected we need probably at least 1.5, if not 2 FTEs for teachers. Same thing in math, probably 1 social studies, 1 science. But once, if the merger vote is successful, we would start having those conversations. We would, Mr. Harper and I would bring our administrative staff together. We'd bring our teachers together and start having some of those conversations about what is the physical, if you will, layout of where teachers are going to be on a daily basis, and how are those teachers going to be deployed to teach specific content areas. We would certainly try to limit that back and forth. Obviously, if a teacher is traveling, they're not teaching. So we would, it's a possibility, but we would definitely want to try to limit it as much as we can.
Just kind of curious, is there a name worked out yet if there is a vote? And, would it be Kennesaurega Arkport or Arkport Kennesaurega? And would you keep the word central in it?
So one of the, again, going back to the assurances, obviously identity is a big deal in small schools. Knowing that the boards have agreed that the newly formed school district would be the Arkport Kennesaurega Central School. The central piece is actually state law, a school law issue. There are union-free schools, city schools, centralized schools. Because both of us are central school districts, it would remain as a central school district.
And what makes it so that a school qualifies to be call itself, Arkport Central? Where does the word central come in? How do you get the phrase?
It's how the school districts are structured from basically a board issue. Union-free school districts have a different makeup in how their boards are put together, and obviously a city school district has different ramifications as well, and obviously we're not in a city, so...
Okay, we're down to the last couple of minutes. In this half hour, we've been talking to Arkport Central School Superintendent Jesse Harper and Kennesaurega Central School Superintendent Chad Groff. Was there anything I did not bring up that either of you would like to talk about?
I think both of us would just encourage our communities to get out and vote. One of the key things in this process has been both boards feeling like they wanted to provide our communities the opportunity to say yes or no. It's kind of that issue where you get to discussing something, and rather than having 10 people, 5 from Kennesaurega board and 5 from Arkport board, just deciding, yes or no to a potential merger, my board really felt like with the potential annexation, allowing our community to make that decision as opposed to them just saying yes or no.
I agree with what Chad says. I want to see a good voter turnout. We had higher than normal rates in our straw vote versus our budget vote, which is great. People are taking this seriously and they want to come out, and I would love to see that the voter rate go even higher. And I'll just stress the fact that we have been working together already about finding shared programs, shared efficiencies, shared staff. Our schools are doing a lot together. Athletics, our elementaries are coming together. That's going to continue, regardless of the outcome of this vote. We will continue to work together and find what we can to make the students have a better experience in both schools.
Jesse Harper from Arkport Central and Chad Groff from Canasarega Central. I want to thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Stay at 1480 WLEA. Stay tuned for Dr. Heineman.